There's a Gaelic word, anam cara, and it means soul friend. Soul friend. And in the Celtic tradition, it was a really important part of your spiritual journey. And remember, this is an oral tradition where so much of scripture and spiritual meaning is held between people. It's spoken. It's held in community. It's not preserved in books. That came later. And it's this concept of anam cara that I want to talk about today. In the early Celtic church, so we're talking 1,500 years ago, and just in case you don't know, the Romans became Christian, but they were in Italy, and they kind of conquered much of Europe. I think that they didn't like the weather. For whatever reason, they came up to Scotland and they were like, no, we're not staying here. And they went back to England and they built a big wall called Hadrian's Wall. And they didn't even bother with Ireland. And in that, we were excluded. We were the edges of the civilized world. And, just in case you don't know, I'm Scottish. And one of my grandmothers was Irish. So I'm very Celtic. And the spirituality, the Christian flavor outside of the Roman Empire was quite different in many ways. And one of the ways that it was different was this kind of like ancient spiritual direction in the form of friendship. And you read about it a lot in the stories about the old nuns and monks. Now I'm going to read a little bit from my friend Christine's book. So Christine Valters Paintner, she's a poet. She is the abbess of an online community called Abbey of the Arts that I am now part of. And she gave me this book, and unfortunately I was using it under a tree, and it lived under a tree for 2 days, so it's a little bit disheveled. But I was doing my work. I was writing my sermon under the crab apple tree. And she has a chapter. This is called The Soul's Slow Ripening. It is Celtic practices to deepen your spiritual practice. Very, very good book. Very easy to read and quite practical. And she writes about the practice of soul friendship. Everyone, whether lay or clergy, man or woman, was expected to have a spiritual mentor and companion on the soul's journey. This was a person to whom you could confide all the inner struggles, someone who would help you find your path and could midwife you in discernment. There was a sense of genuine warmth and intimacy in this relationship, and a deep respect for the other's wisdom as a source of blessing. Age or gender differences did not matter. She goes on to quote the late Irish priest and poet John O'Donoghue. I'm going to talk about him later too. He has a whole book on anam cara, which is very good. So if you like this and you want to learn more, I can give you that link. So John O'Donoghue writes, anam cara was a person to whom you could reveal the hidden intimacies of your life. This friendship was an act of recognition and belonging. When you had an anam cara, your friendship cut across all convention and categories. You were joined in an ancient and eternal way with the friend of your soul. Now, supposedly, St. Bridget said, "Go forth and eat nothing until you get a soul friend. For anyone without a soul friend is like a body without a head. It is like the water of a polluted lake, neither good for drinking nor for washing. This is the person without a soul friend." Strong words. Strong words. Why do we need an anam cara? I think especially at this time, we need to hold up truth as sacred again. And And that's really, Anamkara is key to that. David Whyte, the poet, do you know him? There's a poem called The Sun. And I think this poem says exactly why we need Anamkara. I look out at everything growing so wild and faithfully beneath the sky and wonder, why are we the one terrible part of creation, privileged to refuse our flowering? Why are we the one terrible part of creation, privileged to refuse our flowering? I think that's so true. Anybody who spends time with animals will know that they are just fully themselves. They've been so important to me during COVID as a means of walking with fear. I believe that we have an inner compass in us, and we have the ability to recognize truth that kind of resonates in us. But our thinking and also our flight and fight reflex can get off kilter. Especially if we've been traumatized or if we're in a place that we're overwhelmed by the emotions in our life, like maybe anger or grief or something. It can really make us a little bit off kilter. And people tend to have either a very, very negative self-talk or an overinflated self-talk. And if you're like me, you teeter-totter between the two. I think most people teeter-totter. And it makes it really difficult for us to actually know ourselves. And one of the key things that I've been learning recently is the principle of knowing thyself. It's one of the three components that Saint Teresa of Avila talks about, how essential it is. And to be honest, a big part of Buddhism is about that rigorous self-inner inquiry and getting our thinking and our ego in check, aligning our passions and wills with how we behave in the world. And I say this a lot, and people just don't believe me, but I think I'm a much nicer guy than I really am, right? And I suspect you're the same. When I'm on my own, I don't realize how crabby I am, and how irritable, and how I get really defensive. I can get really defensive just like that. I have to catch it. My thinking and how I actually am reflected with others, especially if I feel threatened, are not always in alignment. And the mature person does work to align those. And this is where soul friendship comes in. And don't get me wrong, I think we need an ego, right? We need to have our thinking, logical self. That is part of how we bring our gifts to the collective. So I'm bashing the ego and our thinking mind a little bit, but it's essentially a part of us, but it doesn't rule us. It's only one facet of who we are. Now, 2 weeks ago, I was talking about Ubuntu, and I showed a really amateur video of Desmond Tutu, which he was talking off the cuff. And he said in that video, in my culture, there's no such thing as a separate individual. But in our minds, we kind of believe that we are. And the spiritual traditions teach us that we're not. Right? So clearly we need to wrestle with this. So in the Gregorian chant tradition, I'm very fond of Gregorian chant. Many mornings I wake up and I put on this little app on my phone and listen to these French nuns singing in Latin. And I don't know why, but it soothes my soul. And there's a teaching from the Gregorian chant tradition that is, if you cannot hear every single voice in the chapel, you are singing too loud. Now, in my culture, you were taught to learn to sing or to shut up, right? If you're a good singer, then you were in the choir and everybody else had to not sing because it made the music ugly. right? Like how many people have been damaged by being told you can't sing? Yeah, me too. And it was my mum that did that, and I always tease her because I make my money as a singer. You were wrong. Anyway, she's gotten over it, and maybe I haven't. What a different way of seeing that if you can't hear every voice, a very different way of looking at participation and song, and a good model for us in dismantling hierarchies. One of the key components there is not judging your own voice, not judging other people's, and that is the key aspect of Anam Cara, is somebody that you can be yourself with, that can hear your voice and not be like, oh, could you just like sing a bit better, or you missed that note, or it's really just about hearing and witnessing and joining with another. There's something about this way of being that allows us to grow and kind of take up more space on this planet in a good way. And Anam Cara is like a person that holds open the door between your past and your future. They help you, we in the Celtic tradition we talk about it as midwifing the soul of another. And I think there's something in this, because the opposite sometimes of an Anam Cara can be a family member, right? Because that family members see you maybe 2 decades out of date, right? It's one of the gifts. They've known you forever. I love my family. They drive me nuts sometimes. My mum and dad watch my sermons sometimes. Hi, mum and dad, you drive me nuts sometimes. But there's an aspect of, there's so much shared history that who you were in the past is the biggest informer of who you are in this moment. And an Anam Cara doesn't see you based on the past. They see you with an unfolding lens, and it's an incredible gift. And there's a rune of hospitality that we say in Scotland. I saw a stranger yesterday, so I put food in the eating place, drink in the drinking place, and music in the listening place, because often, as the lark says in her song, Christ goes in the stranger's guise. And I was thinking about this last night. I was at Alan and Betty's, and I was downstairs in their basement. I was thinking about this. I think one of the reasons is because the stranger doesn't have a preconceived idea of who you are. They're just, tell me who you are. Tell me about your life. There's a real freedom with a stranger that is actually quite akin to the quality of an Anam Cara. They're seeing you without boxing you into the past. Very liberating. So another parallel to Anam Cara is spiritual direction. And in spiritual direction, we talk about listening another into their wholeness. Observing again without the preconceived ideas of what you're looking at. And the idea is that God sees us based on who we're becoming, but we see each other based on who we have been. That's the holy component there. This is a wee slice from my minister's manual that I wrote for myself to help me work out how to be a minister in a new way. I wrote, there's an incredible transformation that happens when we catch a glimpse of our own worth reflected back from the eyes of another. I cannot tell you how really incredibly important this has been for me as a transgender person. But it doesn't matter what your story is. We all have experiences of failure, low self-esteem, and shame. Or just life being too difficult. In those times when another person sees us, hears us, witnesses us, we can tap into an inner strength that we didn't even know we had. Can you relate to this? There are times that there's a person that just has a conversation with you and you walk away more able to deal with your life. And before, you were just overwhelmed, swamped by it. And that person in there listening is helping you grow into your becoming. Right, so I've got a little metaphor for us here. Stole this from Alan and Betty's kitchen. That's not true, I did ask for it. And they said that if I drop this on the carpet, I'll be banned. It is a duck egg. It's a duck egg, right? And I've used the analogy of an egg before, but never held one in my hand while I'm doing it. I believe that on the spiritual path, you can't just go up and give somebody a rule book. Because the life in all of us emerges from within. If that shell is broken from the outside, it takes away the life. Now, this is a sterile duck egg. But just imagine there's a little baby duck in there. And if I were to crack that, I would take life away. But in the right conditions, when the time is right, the life force within the egg will crack its way out and emerge into the world. And I think that if you're a Christian person, you really need to think about that in the context of proselytizing. Because we can do a lot of damage when we tell people, oh, you should be this way. Especially if you don't know some pieces about them in which that gives them shame and guilt and all sorts of stuff. You're actually harming them with your religion rather than encouraging them to grow as a precious being of God. So I think about this a lot. And if anybody wants this duck egg, you'll have to ask Betty for it. I'm going to put it safely. Yeah, and this looks like a nest. I just know it's going to roll off the podium, down the stairs, and onto the carpet, and then I'll be banned. You'll have to get a new bridge pastor. John O'Donohue writes this: the most subversive invitation you could ever accept is the invitation to awaken to who you are and where you've landed. Plato said in the Symposium that one of the greatest privileges of a human life is to become midwife to the birth of the soul in another. When your soul awakens, you begin to truly inherit your life. You leave the kingdom of fake, surface, repetitive talk and weary roles and slip deeper into the true adventure of who you are and who you are called to become. The greatest friend of the soul is the unknown. Yet we are afraid of the unknown because it lies outside of our vision and our control. We avoid it or quell it by filtering it through our protective barriers of domesticity and control. But the normal way never leads us home. Once you start to awaken, no one can ever claim you again for the old patterns. I think what he says is really true, that change, uncertainty, and the unknown are part of that process that allows the bird to come through the egg. But it's also it's kind of terrifying. And if we have a friend that is midwifing us through that, it really, really can help us, encourage us on the journey. So I write, a soul friend can really help us open to the unknown. Parts of us that are also out of alignment with our vision for ourselves. And parts of us that need to grow because they were squashed. We midwife the soul of each other by becoming an honest, loving mirror. Now, recently, I was listening to a podcast with James Finley. He's one of the people that teaches with Richard Rohr. And I love James Finley's work. He was a psychotherapist, and he writes a lot for survivors of childhood trauma. And he was talking about that instruction by Teresa of Avila to know thyself. And he said, When people ask me how to deepen in self-knowledge, I tell them to get married. And then he starts talking about that mirror of the infights and how difficult it is. But underneath his joking, there's something in that. There's that loving bond, whether it's a marriage or a friendship or another, like I'm thinking of my nephew and niece. The love aspect is one of the ingredients that allows us to really enter into the unknown and to be that little bit more open. I have an Anam Cara, a soul friend that I do ceremony with. And my friend is 10 years younger than me and studied at fashion school. Now, you might have known that I'm a little bit disheveled and that I tend to forget that I have a body sometimes and hair that needs cut and things. So this friend is very important to me in many ways. And our friendship is a loving and honest mirror for each other. Quite literally. So my friend told me that long ago there were no mirrors. There were no mirrors. And people used to rely on their community to dress them and make them ready to get up and talk or make them ready to go out in the world. And that is, I'd never thought about it. Of course, there were no mirrors. My friend and I, when we do ceremony, we dress each other. And that's actually something that still happens in the priesthood or in certain Christian traditions. The first time you're getting ordained, other ministers dress you. You don't dress yourself. It's a little throwback to the importance of the mirroring of another person in your becoming. I can't tell you how important this friendship is to me in learning how others see me, because I don't see myself the way you see me. And my friend gently points out things like, you know, Simon, when you, for whatever reason, refuse to take care of your appearance, that's communicating to other people. And, or I am not able to see my blessing that I'm sharing with other people. But my friend sees that and said, when you did that thing, you have no idea how important that was. Thank you for sharing that. And it encourages me to share more. So there's a side of it that is a challenge and a side that is really a teasing out of my light, that we can't see our own light. You know, in the Jewish tradition, they hold up their hands to see the light reflected in their fingernails. You know, we cannot see the light in our own eyes. Okay. When I am with my friend, my Anam Cara, I think I am a more accurate presentation of myself, and there's a kindness that my Anam Cara gives me that is very nurturing. It's the safe environment around the egg. And a key component of that is the lack of judgment. So Anam Cara, or true friendship, is a beautiful way of engendering love and kindness in the world. It's also a very enjoyable spiritual practice that can involve fine food and wonderful adventures. You know, we often think of spiritual practice as a dirge. I've got to do my prayers now. Oh, I get to grow in life and have a meal and travel across the world and go to holy sites. That sounds like a wonderful spiritual practice to me. But it requires us to be honest, to be loving, keep our heart open, and to be deeply accepting of where the other person's at. This is not about fixing. There's nothing about Anam Cara which is about fixing the other. It's about, tell me who you are today. Tell me about the quality of your heart. Tell me about your disappointments and your dreams. I want to see all of you, warts and all. I want to see the real you. I don't need you to be successful. I don't need you to be different. Now, I'm going to weave in a little bit of theology here. Now, the reason I think that Anam Cara is so important is because I believe in original blessing. I don't believe in original sin. I'm a Celtic Christian. I think that that was a corruption of the Christian message. There is nothing at our core that is wrong with us. There's a deep, we are a part of God, deep at the core. Now, Pelagius, I'm going to talk about him a little bit more in the coming weeks. He was a Celtic Christian. He was from Wales, and the Romans hated him. They excommunicated him and barred him for hundreds of years, not just while he was alive. And he was also attributed with saying, "Go forth and eat nothing until you get a soul friend. For anyone without a soul friend is like a body without a head." And he was 2 generations before Bridget, so maybe she heard it from him. He taught many things, but he taught that the essence of our nature is God, but that this inner nobility can become buried, can get covered up by falseness and illusion, and we can become addicted to the false. He believed that the sacred essence of our being is never undone. It's always there at the depths, able to rise again with the assistance of what he called divine grace. And Anam Cara was part of his spiritual practice in tapping into that divine grace. All right. So let's practice this. Let's not just think about it. Let's sing about it and send that out. We've got a wee tune written by my friends, 2 of my friends, called The Angel Wash. You got it in your bulletin, I think. I behold you, beautiful one. I behold you, child of the earth and sun. Let my love wash over you. Let my love watch over you. I behold you, beautiful one. I behold you, child of the earth and sun. Let my love wash over you. Let my love watch over you. I behold you, beautiful one. I behold you, child of the earth and sun. Let my love wash over you. Let my love watch over you. One more time. I behold you, beautiful one. I behold you, child of the earth and sun. Let my love wash over you. Let my love watch over you. I'm aware that people are in the sanctuary and they can't just sneak off if they're needing to have a break from the sermon, so I'm going to I'll try and bring it into summary now. That's one of so in summary, these are words of John O'Donoghue again. In the caring, loving presence of an Anam Cara soul friend, you are understood as you are without a mask or pretension. The superficial half-truths of social acquaintance fall away, and you can be as you really are. Love allows understanding to dawn. You are understood. You are home. When you really feel understood, you feel free to release yourself into the trust and shelter of the other person's soul. It is in awakening and exploring this rich inner landscape that the Anam Cara experience illuminates the mystery and kindness of the divine, kindness of God. Friendship is the nature of God. This art of belonging awakens and fosters a deep and special companionship. Friendship is the relationship with God. He's going even further. And I'm going to tie that back to often Christ goes in the stranger's guise. Christ is here among us. Anam Cara is a way of being It's not just of the gift of friendship. It's a way of seeing others. So if you'd like to continue to ponder Anam Cara over the week, I've got 2 pieces of homework that you can consider. One is that thing about belonging. John O'Donoghue said that Anam Cara fosters belonging, and our society is longing for belonging, longing for it. It is a deep wound that many people do not feel they belong, whether that's to do with colonization or just families being shattered. So a piece of homework for us can be to look at where we can contribute to belonging in our sphere of influence, in ourselves and in others. How can I make this world bring belonging to myself and others? And the second thing we could do is, people sometimes tell me they don't have an Anam Cara. They don't have a soul friendship. This isn't something that's accessible to them. And I want to acknowledge the deep pain of that. For people that don't have a sacred community or others through which they can truly just let down their guard. But what I say when people tell me that, and often we cry when we have this conversation in spiritual direction, is you can start small. You can start by bringing in trust and intimacy into the encounters you already have. You can start small, and you can ask God for an Anam Cara to come to you. So you can do your part and you can pray about it. So that there are a few little pieces that you can use over the coming week. I'd like to close with a blessing by John O'Donoghue. We've got that for the people online. I don't know if you'll be able to read it in the room. So I'm going to read it at least twice. May you be blessed with good friends and learn to be a good friend to yourself. Journeying to the place in your soul where there is love, warmth, and feeling. May this change you. May it transfigure what is negative, distant, or cold within your heart. May you be brought into real passion, kindness, and belonging. May you treasure your friends. May you be good to them and be there for them, and receive all the challenges, truth, and light you need. May you never be isolated, but know the embrace of your Anam Cara. May I be blessed with good friends and learn to be a good friend to myself, journeying to that place in my soul where there is love, warmth, and feeling. May this change me. May it transfigure what is negative, distant, or cold within my own heart. May I be brought into real passion, kindness, and belonging. May I treasure my friends. May I be good to them and be there for them, and receive all the challenges, truth, and light that I need. May I never be isolated, but know the embrace of my Anam Cara. Amen. And to transition out, I'm going to sing the blessing to the world again that we started with. I don't know if Kathy can get that up on the screen. And I'm going to have to remember, I forgot it last time. I'm going to hope that I don't forget it this time. You are the heart, you are the hands, you are the voice of spirit on earth, and who you are, and all you do is a blessing to the world. You are the heart, you are the hands, you are the voice of spirit on earth, and who you are, and all you do is a blessing to the world. We are the heart, we are the hands, We are the voice of Spirit on earth, and who we are, and all we do is a blessing to this world. And again, we are the heart, we are the hands, we are the voice of Spirit on earth, and who we are, and all we do is a blessing to the world. I am the heart, I am the hands, I am the voice of Spirit on earth, and who I am, and all I do is a blessing to this world. I am the heart, I am the hands, I am the voice of Spirit on earth, and who I am, and all I do is a blessing to the world. Amen. Thank God for that. I hope everybody on Facebook and at home was singing. It was really beautiful to sing that all with you here. We're going to